tuples are immutable. An immutable object cannot be changed in any shape or form. So like with a list and a tuple are very similar, except you cannot change a tuple. So in a way they are very different. If we define a list, so I'll get my list back up with only one item in the whole list. So I'll just have one item, which is just the word hello. I can change that by locating the index value of it, which is 0, because remember it's 0 based, then just replacing it with a different word. So goodbye. Then we print out the array and we get goodbye replacing hello. That is mutable. We can change it. We've changed hello. We can append items to the end. Remember, so if you do the array name, then append, and in brackets add whatever you want to append to it. So I'll append good morning and run this. So as you can see, goodbye and good morning. Basically what's happened here is we've replaced hello with goodbye and then appended good morning to the end of this list, which now has goodbye. So that's the general idea of a list. You can change it, it's mutable. But now let's have a look at a tuple. So to define a tuple, I'm going to type cars, because obviously it has to be cars. So this is going to be a tuple. Now to define a tuple, you don't use these brackets. You can include brackets like these and then type your items like this. However, the brackets aren't required. You can just leave them like this and do a comma for each item. So we need the cars back. I'll only do 3. So one more. I'll do something different now. Bentley. And there we go. So we've got our tuple. You can test this by printing out your tuple and then adding type around it in brackets like so. So if you add type around it in brackets and then run your script, you'll see that it prints out class tuple. So you know this is definitely a tuple. If you add the brackets, the normal brackets like this, and run it, you can see it's still a tuple. So it doesn't really matter if you include them or not. I prefer to include them, but it's personal preference. So now we need to try and edit this tuple. But the purpose of a tuple is that it's immutable, so you can't. So let's see what happens when we try to. So cars will get an index item, so Ferrari, which is at index position 0, and try and replace it with a different one. So we'll replace it with Aston Martin. Run this, and as you can see, it says tuple object does not support item assignment. And that's because, like I said, tuples are immutable. They cannot be changed. You cannot append to it. Append doesn't even exist for tuples. You can't delete data from the list. From the tuple. A list is separate. So essentially, it's just unchangeable. Now you may be thinking, well, what's the purpose of it? Well, it can be used as a dictionary key. So, you know, like in a database, if you think of like a primary key, which is like a unique identifier for records. So you've got personal data of people, and 2 people have the same name. Well, you might need a unique identifier, like an ID number or a student number, for example, to identify a specific person, because if they've both got the same name, then you need something else to identify each one. So you want a tuple for that, because you don't want the personal ID number or personal identification to change. It's also fixed in size, so like I said, we can't add, delete elements to or from this tuple. Therefore, it does make the tuple faster at searching items in the list, because they only have a constant set of values. If you had a complex script that was adding and taking away and appending to a specific list, that can take longer to search for items compared to just a tuple which has fixed values.